Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us. At USA Global TV and Radio, we gladly provide world-class entertainment, education, news, hope, and inspiration. I'm your host, Diane Floyd Boehm, for our show, The United Kingdom News and Culture, episode 138. Dr. Jacqueline, founder of USA Global TV and Radio, is producing the show today. Thank you, Dr. Jacqueline. Our team member, Helena Shard, is out on business, but should be back with us next week. But never fear, our Scottish team member, the fabulous chef, author, speaker, sailor, and so much more, will be sharing with us the royal news, the UK updates, and Scottish history. Please welcome Simon McDonald.
Hello, it's Wednesday again. Yippee! Here we are back again. I really look forward to this show on a Wednesday. It's just a nice atmosphere, and I've been getting some lovely feedback from some of the viewers as well. And it's very, very heartening. It really is. It's very nice to hear that other people are enjoying it just as much as we are.
You're right about that. And for everyone who's listening or watching or both, please, we love to hear from you. As Simon McDonald just said, it really brightens our day.
Absolutely. There we go. And yes, it needs brightening. It's a bit dull here today. But then I suppose it's something to do with the time of the year. I mean, we caught the tail end of that hurricane you very kindly sent across to us. Thank you. But yes, we caught the tail end of it. I mean, in the village where I'm here, in actual fact, it wasn't too bad. It was forecast to start at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and usual thing in the West Highlands, time stands still, so it didn't start till about 8:30 at night, and then it blew quite hard here for a while. But all around in the other areas just south of here, had exceptionally high spring tides, which caused a lot of flooding in the town of Tarbert just down the road. And Oban got a bit of a hammering, and in Malig, the pier in Malig, it was the first time ever that anybody knows that the tide actually came over the top of the pier. So fishing boats there were getting a bit of a pasting against that lot, and it was up around about hurricane force. It was pretty strong. So, I would hesitate about going out sailing in weather like that, shall we say.
Oh, absolutely. That's very scary, and I hope everybody is all safe and sound now.
Absolutely are. Yes. So, and we got the rain to go with it. Oh boy, did it rain. Now I was beginning to wonder, oh no, the tide's not coming in today. It's coming down. And we had lots of it.
You're so funny. So funny. But, you can't mess around with floods. And I tell people, look, if the town tells you to evacuate. If the town tells you there's going to be flooding, figure out how to go high, right?
Yes, right. Well, there we are. I mean, the Scottish Highlands, you've got plenty of options, but it's just a time sort of thing, you're getting things out. I mean, I've never actually been in the situation where my house has been flooded out or lived in a house that's been flooded out. But I mean, what do you do? What do you take first? Do you shift everything upstairs? Do you have time to shift everything upstairs? But what sort of things do you grab and take with you? It's and can you think about that at a moment like that as you're watching it, the water's going up, and you think, I need this car and I need to get it out of here. Just start throwing things into it and throw the dog in on top. So it is a big concern.
It is a huge concern. And, even though I grew up with hurricanes and tornadoes and so forth, I never really paid attention to it too much about what to take. I think the older you get, you think about more of that. But living overseas and living in a place where you have to be ready in case you have to evacuate, you have what's called a to-go bag. And you have your passport, everything, copies of everything, right? And that made me think, you know what? We need to have a to-go bag at home, because you never know if there's a fire or something could go wrong. And it's, the most important papers that you need.
It's good food for thought. I think, because I'm just sort of thinking there, I've got to run from room to room to pick up pieces here, there, and everywhere. So I think, a grab bag, go bag, whatever you want to call it, it's probably a very good idea to have. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's given me something to do tonight.
Your to-go bag, right?
Do I have a bag big enough?
Grabbing all those pictures, right? No, I know. So, and my heart goes out to everyone affected by the floods in your country, as well as in our own country, that are still picking up from the hurricane and the floods. It's those after rains that can be quite devastating to various states here as well.
Oh, that was awful. That was really, really bad, that last one. Of course, coming just 2 weeks on the back of the previous one as well, not having the time to clear up, then all the debris that's already lying around, that's going to get battered against everything else as well. So, it compounds it somewhat. Yeah.
But on the high note, we're so blessed that technology has improved that we can have these warnings about the weather. I think it was in 1904 or 1905, something like that. I might have mentioned it to you. In Galveston, we didn't have what's now built a seawall. And the Americans didn't listen to the people that said a hurricane's coming your way. And so they ignored it. And the hurricane came, and I think it took over 1,500 lives.
Oh, heck, that's bad. Yes.
And so it's still considered the most deadly hurricane in the United States. You don't hear much about it because it was so long ago, but I think it's a good reminder that Mother Nature is strong.
You can fight all sorts of things, but you cannot fight Mother Nature. No, you've got to work with Mother Nature, definitely. Yeah.
Definitely. And on that happy note, how about we go to some really fun things like the royal news?
Yes, right. Okay. Well, let's go on a cheerier note, sort of. Yes, I think it is. Well, what's been going on now? This is going to be predominantly around King Charles and Queen Camilla, because they are still on their tour today. In fact, they landed in Samoa for Commonwealth Conference, but they've had the last 6 days or so in Australia, and they got a bit of a mixed reception there. It was because in Australia there's a lot of feeling about should they still be in the Commonwealth, do they need to have monarchy, and there's some very sort of strong activists against that, which was sort of shown it's made global news when King and Queen were in the federal parliament on Monday, and it was Senator Lydia Thorpe, who's an Aboriginal activist, began shouting, reproaching the king for the disastrous effects of colonialism, shouting things like, "This is not your country, you destroyed our land, give us a treaty, we want a treaty in this country, you're a genocidalist," there's a new word, she shouted, "and this is not your land, or you're not my..." So it went on. I mean, this embarrassing incident really did make the headlines around the world. And she made her point, but perhaps a slightly more diplomatic approach would have been better. So there we go. So anyway, so King Charles and Queen Camilla, they flew into Samoa today, following the 6-day visit to Australia for a visit during which the monarch will be offered the title of High Chief and attend a summit of the Commonwealth Nations. So the Prime Minister, Fim Naomi Matafa, I hope I've got the pronunciation right. Why do every week I've come up with these pronunciations which are almost impossible, but there we go. It always seems to work that way. Lands on my plate. I can take it. So anyway, the Prime Minister welcomed the royal couple on the runway. It was dark then as well, so I'm not quite sure what time it was, but pretty late. So that met him along with other dignitaries before the band played the national anthem. That's our one, God Save the King. I still get confused with that and God Save the Queen. It's the same tune, it's the same words, but King and Queen have been substituted. Anyway, the royal couple, they've travelled 10,000 miles across 10 different time zones in order to take part in this overseas tour. It's Charles' first trip to a British realm since he became king, and the furthest he's travelled since starting his cancer treatment in February. So, it's a tough call, that, and they've got a couple of doctors with them this time. But here's some interesting facts and protocols that have to be followed on a royal tour, just breaking away from things just now. Tours, they're always a highlight for the royal family, giving them the chance to visit far-flung countries and learn about different cultures and raise awareness about important issues. But there are a number of traditions and regulations that they must follow when they travel abroad, including one rule that has actually been broken on quite a few occasions. Royal protocol dictates that members of the royal family must take a black outfit with them when they go on a royal tour, in the unfortunate event that someone passes away when they're abroad. Famously, the late Queen Elizabeth was in Kenya on safari with Prince Philip when her father, King George VI, died in 1952. The then princess was without a mourning dress, and as a result, she wasn't allowed to be photographed until a suitable outfit had been brought to her on the plane as she landed in the UK. So there was a bit of a delay while she got changed into that and then came down the steps in wearing black. So that rule's been put in ever since then. As representatives of the monarchy and the nation, royals are expected to learn the basic greetings in each country's native language before they visit, in order to show respect. The intention of overseas visits, of course, is to strengthen and maintain ties with foreign nations, and therefore royals make concerted efforts to honour and respect the cultures of the countries they visit. Adhering to dress codes means that in some countries, hemlines or sleeve lengths, necklines, all got to be considered, and men might need tie pins, medals, sashes and handkerchiefs, and women often pay respect to the country with a national flower or symbol incorporated into their clothing. Symbolic colours are chosen, significant jewellery is decided upon. So remember when Kate went on the first tour in Canada, and she definitely wore the red and white, and very much in keeping with the Canadian flag. Ever wondered why the royals always look immaculate when they disembark from the plane? Well, it's simple. It's because they've only recently changed into the clothes they've been wearing. Last minute briefings are given on the plane, and the royals will change out of the travelling clothes into the outfits at the last minute, just to avoid any wrinkles or any spillages. I mean, a nice white uniform, you spill some red wine on it, heaven forbid. The health of a monarch is of top importance, and as such, a doctor will always travel with them. In this case, with Charles and Camilla, they've actually got 2 doctors as well, because he's still undergoing his cancer treatment, although he's postponed that for the duration of this trip. So I'm not sure whether it was a good idea to do that or not. But anyway, they pack blood bags to match the monarch's blood type in case of any emergency. The late Queen would always travel alongside a Royal Navy doctor who would research information about local hospitals wherever she went on a world tour. The King and Queen both travel with their own personal packs of blood following their convoy wherever they go, and the doctor is never more than a few paces away. In order to protect the royal lineage, heirs to the throne are unable to fly together. Now, this restriction directly impacts those who line to the throne themselves, and has included William, his father, King Charles, and his grandmother, the late Queen. It will also affect Prince George, who is currently second in line to the throne. The tradition was put in place in the event of a catastrophic plane crash, ensuring that an heir to the throne is always protected and the monarchy remains stable. However, William and Kate have been known to break this rule on a few occasions in the past, but only with the permission of the former monarch, Queen Elizabeth. In 2014, the couple actually flew with their 9-month-old son, George, to both New Zealand and Australia, but they had to have it signed off by the monarch due to the risk of two heirs travelling together. So that's some of the protocols that goes on. Now, this is an interesting one here as well, regarding wedding rings. Now, Kate Middleton's engagement ring has long been envied by royal watchers everywhere, with people in awe of the sapphire and the diamond masterpiece that once belonged to Princess Diana. But the same can't be said for Prince William, as he's never actually worn a wedding ring. Here's why. Despite the Prince and Princess of Wales being married for over 13 years, William has never worn a wedding band. While many people have chalked it up to a royal tradition, the truth is that Prince William's decision not to wear a wedding ring is purely based on his own personal style. He's not one for jewellery and has never worn any. It's simply down to personal preference. In contrast, his father, King Charles, does wear a wedding ring. However, he chooses to place it underneath his signet ring, worn on his pinky finger. Prince Harry, well, he wears a wedding band on his ring finger, which he has done since he married Meghan Markle in 2018. When I was researching this, somebody quipped to me, said, "Oh yes, he probably has one through his nose as well." Oh dear, William always gets it. And like William, his grandfather, Prince Philip, never wore a wedding band over the course of his 73 years marriage to Queen Elizabeth II, which that was something I didn't know about. So although it's traditional for royal women to wear both an engagement ring and a wedding ring after they get married, it's never been traditional for royal men to wear one. So it's likely that Prince William will never be spotted with a band of gold on his ring finger. So there we have today's Royal Roundup.
Wow, that was so fascinating. So much information there. I don't even know where to begin, but
yeah, it's just once I start on the, I'm like a bloodhound, I suppose. I get on the trail, and I'm digging up all these different facts and factoids and so on, and I really get totally immersed in it and thoroughly enjoy it. It's good fun.
It's very interesting, and I think it's really smart to make sure you have a black outfit just in casers, and yes. It's definitely a good idea for to travel in separate planes if you're up, second in line for the monarch. That's pretty important, yes. Not to lose everybody at once, right?
Yeah, and a grab bag now as well.
And a grab bag as well.
Got to have the grab bag. That's absolutely essential.
That's hysterical.
I think we'll start a trend now.
We'll start a trend, the go bag, right?
Yeah.
Well, now we have Stranger Things.
Yes. Oh, well, there we go. Yes, on the sort of factoid thing as well. Let's give a few more of these, which I've been digging up. Well, the world record for the longest human chain of people holding hands is actually 652.4 miles long and consisted of 5 million people in Bangladesh as part of a campaign. Very friendly lot, all holding hands. Wow. Now, aircraft manufacturer Boeing, who's been coming under a lot of criticism recently, but however, Boeing uses potatoes to test their in-flight Wi-Fi, as they're either apparently, not Boeing, but the potatoes, reflect and absorb the signals similarly to people. The project is called Synthetic Personnel Using Dialectic Substitution, or SPUDS for short. Well, there's a thing. I wonder what they do with the potatoes afterwards. I suppose they've been microwaved, haven't they? Yeah. Television was invented only 2 years after the invention of sliced bread. So I suppose you could say television was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Oh, dear. Where do I get them from? And the process by which bread toasts is called Maillard reaction. Oh, we've got a saying for everything, haven't we? And to finish this fun on, which quite amused me, is that seals only sleep with half their brain when out at sea. I don't know if they leave the other half on land, but I know some people that I think only use half their brain when they're on land anyway. So there we go. So there we have a selection of strange but true factoids.
That is so amazing. and fascinating. I have to read more about that, leaving half your brain.
Yes, a seal only uses half its brain when it sleeps at sea. It's got to keep alert for numerous reasons. One, they breathe air, so they can't allow themselves to sink to the bottom. So they've got to keep fairly active. And then the other thing as well, they've got to be wary for predators, because sharks like a bit of seal meat. There's a tasty bite for them. And, there's other predators as well they've got to watch out for. So there we go. Oh, my goodness gracious, I've got a website.
Dr. Jack is putting up your website if you want to talk about it.
Yes, there's just a commercial break we've got now. So there we are. Yes, I think she's just testing to see that my teleprompter isn't actually covering the screen. So there we go. Yes, there's my website, simon-mcdonald.com.
Great.
It covers all sorts of multitude of things, and there's videos and goodness knows what all attached to it as well. So there we have it. So yes, by all means, go and have a look at simon-mcdonald.com.
There you go. And going back to that half a brain, were you ever in school and your teacher said something like, Diane, did you just come to school with half your brain today?
Yeah, teacher never said that to me. They always said, Simon, have you come to school with any brain today, I think. More like it.
Oh, my goodness gracious. And another commercial break. And we have
another commercial break. We've got Diane's website coming up.
Thank you, Dr. Jacqueline. Yes, everybody, please make sure you come and visit Simon's website as well as mine and discover more things we do. Simon is a great speaker, loves to go out and talk to people about the various things he does. Such a fascinating man. And if you're lucky, you can invite him to even, it's playing my music. You can invite him to even be a chef at some local outfits.
Our producers having a bit of fun.
Yeah, start dancing. And of course, I too do speaking engagements as well. Did you know that, Simon? I do speaking engagements and signing books with you. And
you've got a beautiful website as well. I really like that website. It's super excellent.
Thank you. I worked really hard on it. I mean, literally, I worked on that one.
It's the shop window, basically.
So, Simon, do you want to share real quick before we go into the history about your fabulous poetry book?
Oh, goodness gracious, yes. Time for another commercial break. Here we go. A Rhyme in Time. It's I actually wrote it last year and published last year. And it's modern day children's nursery rhymes. And I tried to write it from the mindset of the child. I suppose a bit childish at times myself anyway, we all are. And it's a delightful little book. I've written it and illustrated it as well. Cuts out the middleman, and it's selling very well through Amazon and Norns Triad Publications and various other platforms as well. It's coming up to Christmas time. I'll get one for the kids or for the grandkids at Christmas. But the number of adults that like this, and they're buying it for themselves, and saying, well, we're not letting the kids take this one away with us, and the grandkids take it home with them. We want it for ourselves. And it's suitable for children from all ages, from about 2 to 102, I would say.
It absolutely is. And I think I told you, Simon, I have a I gave one copy to my grandson, and then I have my own personal copy. So there you go.
Yes. Oh, well, there we go. You see, there we are. So, and I wonder who gets the most pleasure out of it.
Probably me. No.
That's
No,
what
actually,
I
he absolutely loves.
Oh, there we are. Oh, producer's working well today. So there we go. There it is, a rhyme time.
Rhyme and time. And it is now time. Ha 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 ha. Play on words. Pretty bad, right? Anyway, don't have your cleverness.
Yeah.
To talk about our lovely Scottish history.
Yes. Yeah. Well, last week I gave part one about the most remarkable gentleman, Thomas Lipton, or should we say Sir Thomas Lipton, who came from very humble beginnings, and but he was, quite the entrepreneur. And he, set up a grocery store in Glasgow, and then a few years later, he had 300 of them scattered around the country. Then he went out to Australia, but stopped off at Ceylon to investigate the tea industry there, because the coffee industry had really hit rock bottom with a blight on the coffee plants. So he looked at doing something about tea, and he brought tea back to the UK, bought up a lot of the coffee plantations for absolute buttons because they were all going bankrupt, and they set up tea plantations there instead. And he made tea affordable, and brought it back. And he was a great publicist and great advertising man as well. He knew how to put on a show. So there we are. So that was in part one. So we carry on with his life. And throughout the 1890s, Lipton continued to prosper. He'd made millions. His close relationship with America and his frequent visits there led him to the decision to break into the American tea market. I had ample margins of supplies for prospective American customers, provided I could prevail on them to become addicted to my tea in the same way as I had become to be a firm believer in their hams, bacons, and cheese. And that was a quote from the man himself. His businesses rapidly expanded, not only in tea plantations, but also in coffee and cocoa estates, fruit farms in Kent, Chicago packing companies, and meat stores and bakeries and curing stations and wine stores. So he really got heavily into the food and drink world. As long as his parents were alive, he'd resisted the logical move to London. However, as more and more decisions were taken south of the border, he spent half his life on trains going back and forth. And of course, it was long train journeys in those days. In 1889, his mother died. He'd lost his best friend and trusted counsellor. His father died a few months later. So without his parents there to tie him to Glasgow, he took the decision to move to London and soon opened new offices in Bath Street City Road in London. In 1898, Lipton yielded to the public clamour and allowed his empire to become a limited company. The professional view of the company was that while it was rock solid, it was no longer capable of drastic expansion. So slow and steady growth would lead to long-term investment into account, and it was high regard and affection of the public had for Lipton's brand that made this all happen. There was an unprecedented rush for shares. At the National Bank of Scotland, the police had to regulate the crowds. Applications were received for almost £50 million worth of shares. And £50 million worth of shares at that time was a lot of money. So on the 2nd of June that year, Lipton directed his first shareholders' meeting. And it was also the first time in 30 years since the opening of his first shop in Glasgow that he'd had to answer to anyone but himself. So as a public company, Lipton's continued to prosper, increasing turnover and dividends year after year. However, the situation rapidly changed in the 1920s when large companies such as Home and Colonial Store and Vanderberg's, part of Unilever, were the main competition. In 1927, Vanderberg's acquired 25% of the shares, and Sir Thomas then decided to retire from active control of the company. Fellow Scotsman Sir John Ferguson took over as the chairman, retaining Lipton as the life president. However, It was a title with no power, and within 2 months, Sir Thomas had sold his interests in the company to the Meadow Dairy Company, which was controlled by Home and Colonial. He is reputed to have been paid £1 million, and he did not, however, relinquish control of his American company, which is Thomas J. Lipton Inc., or his tea interests in Ceylon. Throughout his career, Lipton was noted for his charitable work. One of the earliest and best known was his gift in 1897 of £25,000 for the Prince of Wales' plea to provide dinners for the poor of London during the Queen's Diamond Jubilee celebrations. He worked with Queen Alexandra to set up the Alexandra Trust, which provided meals at a very affordable price to the poor in London. Then during the First World War, he fitted out a steam yacht, the Erin, as a Red Cross hospital ship and transported a field hospital to France. Later, he offered Erin to transport surgeons and nurses and orderlies to Serbia, which was under attack from the superior forces of Austria-Hungary. Despite his considerable wealth and social standing, he never forgot his humble origins and always showed compassion for the poor and unemployed, particularly in his native Glasgow, of course. In 1902, when a stand at Ibrox Park collapsed, killing scores of spectators, he was quick to send a cheque for the relief of the families of the victims. His generosity spilled over into other fields, including sport, and there was hardly a corner in the world which could not boast a Lipton Cup, whether for sailing, racing, cricket, or football. I myself sponsored, through a company I sponsored a yacht racing in the Lipton Cup in South Africa just 10 years ago. In 1909, Lipton was made a Knight Commander of the Grand Order of the Crown of Italy. By way of thanks, he presented the Italians with a cup to be used for an international football competition. The Football Association declined to nominate a team, so Lipton turned to West Auckland Town to represent Britain. The team was made up mostly of coal miners, and in a story as romantic as Lipton's own, they beat Red Star of Zurich and Juventus to win the cup in 1910. Then they successfully defended the title again in 1911. And because of this, Lipton was often credited with initiating the first football or soccer World Cup, which today has got an incredible following. Lipton's charitable work was to catapult him into a whole new world. He was, until this time, a man devoted entirely to work. His friendship with the Prince of Wales, soon to become Edward VII, developed rapidly and strengthened by a passion for the shared interest in yacht racing. Man after my own heart. He was to be as ambitious a sportsman as he would be a businessman. His very first racing venture was to compete in the world-famous yacht race, the America's Cup. Between 1899 and 1930, he challenged 5 times for the Cup, all in yachts which he called Shamrock, to honour his Irish lineage and friends of the Royal Ulster Yacht Club. Well, he never actually managed to, as he would say, lift that old mug. Surely the most elusive piece of metal in all the world is, so far as I'm concerned. However, 30 years of chasing the America's Cup brought him joy, health, and splendid friends, and it also kept him young, eager, buoyant, and hopeful. He also captured the imagination of the American people, and he was presented with a solid gold gloving cup and a donor's book in which the flamboyant mayor of New York had written, "Possibly the world's worst yacht builder, but absolutely the world's most cheerful loser." I like that saying. So even after the transfer of his headquarters to London, Lipton remained a familiar figure in his native Scotland, and he was a frequent visitor to Glasgow for business and pleasure. The Erin, his yacht, with motor yacht, was frequently seen cruising in the Clyde, sometimes towing 2 Shamrocks behind it. And I don't mean the plant, but huge America's Cup yachts. So especially during Clyde Yacht Week, which is a major event there in Scotland, when one of the Shamrocks usually claimed a trophy. Lipton and yacht racing were so popular that he even makes appearances in Neil Monroe's best-selling book, The Parahandy Tales, which is a beautiful book, where much to the relief of Captain MacPhail and the annoyance of the captain, MacPhail was the engineer, and the annoyance of the captain, who was Parahandy himself, Shamrock snatches the victory from White Heather, In recognition of his popularity and his contribution to the yachting on the Clyde, Lipton was presented with the freedom of the town of Rothesay in June 1931. Rothesay's quite a pretty little town on the island of Bute, right in the middle of the Firth of Clyde, very popular with holiday makers. When Lipton transferred his business from Glasgow to his new London headquarters, he also acquired a new home, Osage, a large, comfortable house set in 60-acre estate on Southgate in Middlesex. He enjoyed entertaining friends and business acquaintances, and every year he held a day of sports and entertainment, especially for his office staff. In 1898, Lipton purchased the Clyde-built 1,240-ton steam yacht, the Agisa, and this is the yacht which he named then Erin. Lipton entertained lavishly on the Erin. Looking back now, it gives me intense satisfaction to recall the many prominent and distinguished people who had the honour of acting as host aboard my floating home, unquote, from Tommy Lipton. Among his distinguished guests were King Edward VII, Queen Alexandra, Princess Beatrix and her daughter, and practically every royal personage in Europe, and the illustrious men and women of every walk of life on both sides of the Atlantic. In 1898, he travelled to the Isle of Wight to be knighted by the Queen, and he became a baronet in 1902. Perhaps the greatest honour, however, was to be given the freedom of Glasgow in 1923, which allows you to herd your sheep through the middle of Glasgow, but that was his biggest honour. Sir Thomas, as a friend of Edward VII, found himself mixing with the cream of Edwardian society. He was a frequent guest at Buckingham Palace and at Balmoral. And at Cowes, he was entertained on the royal yacht Victoria and Albert, and in return arranged cruises and parties on board the Erin. Ascot and Cowes regattas, Christmas in the Riviera, royal parties at Sandringham, visits to Ceylon and the United States filled his social year to the full. His popularity in America increased with every visit, and he mixed with everyone from Wall Street to Washington, from New York Yacht Club to Hollywood. He dined at the White House and entertained President Roosevelt on board the Erin. Lipton was wealthy, he was good-looking and affable, and therefore particularly eligible. He was a ladies' man and a very adept flirt, but there was never a shortage of company of the ladies by his side. The newspapers on both sides of the Atlantic would take a friendly curiosity in his marital state, but he remained unmarried for all of his life. Sir Thomas Lipton, he died peacefully in his sleep at his home in Osage on the 2nd of October 1931. He was 81 years of age and was said to have been planning his 6th attempt at the America's Cup. He's been buried beside his beloved mother and father in the southern necropolis in Glasgow. I've seen his grave. Thousands of Glaswegians filed past the coffin in St. George's Church, and a huge crowd lined the streets as the funeral cortege made its way to the cemetery. The terms of his will were to benefit the city of his birth. £80,000 was left to establish the Francis Lipton Memorial Fund for the benefit of poor mothers and children. His yachting trophies and press cuttings collection were left to the city, the former housed at the Kelvingrove Museum and Art Gallery, and the latter forming the Sir Thomas J. Lipton Collection at the Mitchell Library. It's a beautiful building. He left specific bequests to Glasgow hospitals, servants and friends. His London house, Osage, became the Sir Thomas Lipton Memorial Hospital for retired nurses in memory of his mother. The residue of his estate was to be used by his trustees for the benefit of the poor in Glasgow. So in 1937, 6 years after Lipton's death, a High Court order allowed his trustees to sell his interests, with the proceeds going to the Lipton Trust for the benefit of the poor in Glasgow. And by 1946, when the last payments were made, the Lipton Trust had donated a total of £821,000, that's nearly $1 million, to the city. The Lipton brand is now owned by Unilever and still going strong all over the world. So there we have the story of the most remarkable man. And he lived life to the full. An extraordinary character.
Wow. And not just an extraordinary character, adventurer, but he had a heart of gold to help people.
Absolutely. Yes, he was. And he got a great sense of humor. He's always smiling. He was always on the go. boundless energy as well, but his mind was always as sharp as a tack.
They must have needed more tea in heaven to take him so early.
Absolutely, yes. Oh, yes. Yes. I don't know what his favourite tipple was, but he certainly had plenty of tea at his disposal.
Definitely. And the ladies' man, poor women. They must have been so sad. But take me.
Well, I mean, you can imagine a multi-millionaire in this late 1800s. I mean, that's really a multi-billionaire in today's money. So yeah, that's
Good point.
yes, there we are. So yeah, it'd be very popular.
It'd be very popular, but mostly not for the money, but his heart of gold.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
But I can't believe time is running out because I could really talk more about Lipton, and I do enjoy his tea, by the way.
Right.
But I think we better go to On This Day.
Absolutely, yes. So here we go. 1915, an estimated 25,000 supporters in a women's suffrage march on New York's Fifth Avenue was led by Dr. Anne Shaw and Carrie Chapman Catt, founder of the League of Women's Voters. In 1941, Walt Disney's animated movie Dumbo was released. Beautiful movie, that. 1975, English rock star Sir Elton John receives a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Then 2012, this day, 2012, Skyfall, the 23rd Bond movie, directed by Sam Mendes and starring Daniel Craig and Xavier Bardem, premiered in London. Incidentally, for anybody who's seen Skyfall, there's a scene where he's going into Skyfall, his birth home, and the gates there have got a red deer stag on top of each gate. Well, those gates are actually just about a mile away from where I am just now. The lovely castle just along the road here. Birthdays today, 1925. Johnny Carson, American comedian and TV host of the show Tonight, was born in Corning in Iowa. 1940, this day, Pelé, the Brazilian soccer star of 92 caps, player of the century, scored 1,281 goals in 1,363 games, was born in Tres Caracos in Brazil. Then in 1954, Ang Lee, the Taiwanese-born American filmmaker famous for Brokeback Mountain and The Life of Pi, was born in Chaozhou in Pingtung in China, 69 today. Happy birthday, Ang. Deaths today. Now this is the furthest back I think I've gone yet. In 42 BC, Marcus Junius Brutus, Roman senator and the most famous of Julius Caesar's assassins, committed suicide at the age of 43.
Wow.
In 1921, John Boyd Dunlop, Scottish inventor, and he was a vet as well, and he invented the pneumatic rubber tire, Dunlop rubber. Dies at 81. Of course, all our car tires are all down to John Boyd Dunlop, a great Scotsman from Ayrshire, just not far from here. Then in 1957, Christian Dior, the French fashion designer, died of a heart attack, aged 52. So there we have On This Day for Another Day.
Thank you so much. Wow, all the way to BC. That's amazing.
Isn't it just? Yeah. So there we go. That's a lot of tires that Dunlop is famous for. But not only that, I mean, Dunlop make all sorts of things from welly boots to you name it, they make it. If it's made of rubber, Dunlop are there.
Then he was there. Thank goodness for tires, right?
Yes, oh, absolutely, yes. You didn't make the rubber checks, though, so they can keep bouncing away, but not got his name on them.
That's true. Well, as we get ready to close out the show, do you have any last-minute words of wisdom?
Well, again, sort of, thinking back to the seal using half a brain. Everybody's got a photographic memory. Some just don't have the film.
And what's really funny about that? Have you ever, people, if you're super young, you probably never used film. But for us older people, have you ever picked up the camera and you're sitting here going, you're clicking, you're like, I don't understand why it's not moving forward. And you open, and then you're like, oh, I forgot to put the film in.
Yeah, we've all done that. Yes, I know. And the trouble is, as well, it's probably the very best shots you would ever have.
Absolutely.
God.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Whereas now, well, that's it. Any phone, any your iPhone, just click away and so on. You've got it all there instantly, and you can edit it. You can do all sorts of things now. So I mean, anybody can be a photographic superstar or a superstar photographer. I don't know what the word terminology would be for a super photographer, but there we go. We can all do it.
I agree with you, though the professional photographers would not like that statement.
Oh, they don't like it at all. But they're using the same techniques themselves.
They are, and probably some of those apps too.
Absolutely, yes.
Well, thank you for everything you've done today. You always bring such wealth of information, and
It's great fun.
I can't tell you how much I enjoy learning Scottish history. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So, what?
We got another commercial break.
Another commercial break. Well, as she runs that, let me just share. Everyone, please stay tuned for the Anne Scotland Show, the podcast maestro. Launch it. Be sure to tune in for our shows, Next Level Coaching with Robert J. Moore, followed by the Intentional Productivity Tips with Megan Sandwick. Also, we have the Royal Breaking News, which will be on later today, and the Scottish Connection with our very own Simon MacDonald. Wherever you are in the world, I hope your day is filled with peace and love. Bye for now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Simon MacDonald. I live in the West Highlands of Scotland, a very beautiful part of the world. Seems a long way from the USA Global TV station. But remember, USA Global TV is worldwide. It's a fantastic platform. And every Wednesday, I come along here as part of the show of the United Kingdom News and Culture. And it's just like a family reunion each time. It's one of these amazing stations that has such a beautiful, friendly, and intelligent atmosphere as well. And we reach out to an audience in the most unimaginable places. And I came here, I don't know, must be over a year ago now. I was introduced by Dr. Philip Chan, and I met Ian Plum-Turner and Helena Chard, who are co-presenters on the show. And then Diane Floyd-Bem came along as well. And I mean, the five of us, Dr. Jacqueline, of course, who is our host and our mentor, has just made this show work so well. Tremendous people, lovely time we have, and we impart a lot of information, a lot of knowledge. Nothing's rehearsed. It's all done off the cuff, and it all just gels. And we get great feedback from people coming back and saying how they're enjoying the show. It's lovely to hear. It's lovely to get that interaction from outside as well. And we're all listeners, and some of us are elevated listeners as well. So we enjoy every second of it, and we hope you do too.
Kapayapaan, kapayapaan, kapayapaan.
Diane Floyd Bames' A Song of Peace tells the story of a young lad named Tommy whose fervent wish for peace on earth touches the hearts of his friends and family, spreads to his community, and eventually unites the whole world around making his dream of peace a reality for everyone. Sit down with the children in your life and share Tommy's amazing story of love and hope. Sing your own song of peace and invite the children to join you. Tommy's tale is more than just a story. It's a movement, and everyone's warmly welcome to take part.
Kapayapaan, kapayapaan, kapayapaan,
You'll find A Song of Peace, along with many other wonderful learning and enriching opportunities for children of all ages, at DianeFloydBame.com.